Let's pick up now and look at the MIDI effect we had coming in, where data from Ableton was pouring through this channel right here and pouring right back out to Ableton untouched. MIDI parse, remember, takes a MIDI message as its input. So let's feed it in here now instead of sending it straight through. And it breaks it into pieces. This is the pitch, the note, and the velocity. This is the second, let's see, the poly key pressure, right? So multiple keys, gives you a list of key and value, control change numbers that you can use to adjust parameters, the program, what kind of sound it's playing, the aftertouch, the pitch bend, the channel it's on. So all of these different pieces of information. And MIDI parse takes the single packed together MIDI coming in, you remember from your midterm, it might be something like 8C507F, and breaks it into all these little pieces so we can understand what's happening. And if we took all these and sent them right down to MIDI format, it would reassemble them. So this, let me get everybody lined up. So this little message, and then the output message here goes back to Ableton. So this does nothing. Right? This doesn't change the MIDI at all. The MIDI comes into us here in Max from Ableton, and we'll get rid of this comment. And then we break it into pieces. We ignore, don't do anything to it, just send it to MIDI format, bundle it back up, and take it out. Okay? Well, what if we said, wait a minute, I'm going to grab the note information and the velocity that's coming in. So remember, those come as a list. So we have to unjoin that list and break it into the note and the velocity. And then we're going to have to join two numbers back together and send it back out. So what we've done now is taken the first piece of information here, broken it into note and velocity, and the note we're not changing. The note we're just sending through. The velocity we're going to ignore because we're going to send our own velocity in there. We're going to generate a random velocity. Now we don't need the metro to tell us when to do that. Okay. We need to have this dial to know what range of velocity number we're going to send it. And we'll keep an eye on that the same way we did before with a message and a multi-slider box. So when is random going to make these? Well, every time that a MIDI message comes in, let's have a bang here so we can see it. Okay, when a MIDI message comes in, that's when it's time to generate a new velocity, join it together, and send it back out. Now let's fix this up. I don't like the name of that, so I'm going to change that to random range. Okay, so the range of how random the data is going to be. And we have a little picture of it here. Let's check everything else about the MIDI message is going through fine. The first piece gets broken up and then put back together. The broken up part, the note goes right through. The velocity, we ignore how hard you hit it with your finger, and instead we send across our new, we intercepted it and grabbed it up and sent across our new velocity. What's left to check? Well, I don't want it to look like this in the device section of Ableton, in the device change. I'd like this one to be there. So I'm going to right click on this and say add it to the presentation. And now it's got this red box on it. And this is kind of cool looking, so I'm going to add that to the presentation. Okay, so right click says add to presentation. We come down here and go to presentation mode. And I'm going to have that dial sitting in the top part. And then I'm going to have this box sitting here. Maybe we should fix up a color a little bit too, huh? Let's say layout, no, basic, the slider color, be some like wild magenta pink, okay? So now we're going to have to do one last step. Well, we want to save this. Okay, let me lock this down and save it. Control S to save it. Come on, let me save it. And the last thing to do is to open the inspector window for the entire patch and make sure we have open in presentation mode. So it's a little box down here in view. So we're going to check that off. Okay. And now, when we save it, let's come back. Okay, let's shrink this down. Let's get this guy. Close off the inspector. And let's shrink this guy down so he's not full screen anymore. Okay, so that's what our guy looks like. Let's do a make sure we save this. So I'm going to do a max file and save as. And I'll call it CS137 in class random range. Oh, sorry, random volume. Okay. And that's getting saved into the Max MIDI effect folder. So we're going to save that. Okay. Close it out. And there we have our own device right in the Max MIDI folder. If we go, there it is. See, under Max MIDI effect, we've just added a new one. We've made Ableton different, right? There's the CS137 in class random volume device. There's the knob that works just like all the knobs. In fact, if we hit MIDI, it turns purple, and we could map it to something on our Novation if we wanted to, so that it had a physical real world knob to it. And now let's put, that's on this guy here, right? Let's put a sound on there. I'm gonna go with let's see, something plucky. Let's pick a grand piano. Okay. So I'm hitting the same note every time, but this is a graph of how different the velocity is. If we go and make it really extreme, I'm hitting, it doesn't matter if it doesn't know anything about how hard I hit it. We ignored that number. And the note's being passed through. Do you notice something else? What if we go to, I'll let you think about that for a minute. What if we go to a note of 0? Right now all zeros are coming out for the random numbers, so any note I play is kind of could care less, right? Let's go up to a pretty good range of volumes. We got pitch bend doing its pitch bend thing. So I want you to play with this a little bit and see what it's doing. It's an interesting new kind of instrument to play. It doesn't behave like a piano. And maybe this is more lifelike and less robotic sounding. Or maybe it's just, if we go all the way up, maybe it's a little too much. important thing is that we've now taken a big step forward, right? And we now are not just looking at other people's MIDI effects. We're actually able to hop in to Max for Live and create our own MIDI effects. And they look and behave just like the rest of Ableton. Even maybe fancier, right? Even some nicer colors and nicer behaviors. So I'd like to see you duplicate that and play with it and think through what it's doing. Kind of discuss it on the boards with us. Okay, and we're gonna make one more change. So in the homework set, the next one you're gonna do for homework is this patch. Very similar, right? MIDI coming in, parsing it, rebundling it together and sending it out, just grabbing the note information, but this time we unpack it and ignore both the note and the velocity. I don't even care what note you hit. I plan on putting my own note and velocity information in there. So I've kind of, it's like a heist movie, right? We've gone to the bank. They dropped off the money to the bank, but we were waiting in the vault. We grabbed the money and we ignored whatever place it was supposed to go, and we just stuffed our own information in there and went on our way. So the second part of the homework is for you to code up this 137 random patch, play with it, and let us know what it does and why. Okay? So I hope you enjoy the idea that now you're moving into not just generative music and being able to create effects that have random behavior, but we've also tossed in being able to have you create your own devices inside a modern digital audio workstation. And that's a pretty sophisticated level of programming. So congratulations.